Well, it's great to be here in South Africa, the country of Desmond Tutu, Nelson Mandela, and Sean Davison. So, we are in Belgium now for the last two speeches, and I'm going to speak about, some points that it's possible to develop after 16 years of enforcement of the law. Sometimes, it's useful to push the button pause and to think about several questions. What was very important in 2002 when we passed these three laws, it was also the question that we have spoken about palliative care. And in Belgium, for example, you don't have, in general, there are some exceptions, this opposition between palliative care providers and euthanasia providers. So that's very important to stress that point, and to stress also another point that Belgium is very good in palliative care. So to say that when you get a law, euthanasia, you are going to give less impulse for palliative care is absolutely a bad thought. It's absolutely the contrary. So we passed these three laws in Belgium, and I'm going to speak a little about the Belgian law on euthanasia, not in details because, it's going to take too much time. But first of all, the definition of euthanasia. It's important because sometimes we hear that people speak about euthanasia. It's not euthanasia. It could be sedation. It could be, simply to withdraw a treatment. It could be giving more and more morphine, but it's not euthanasia. Euthanasia is the act performed by a third person that intentionally ends a person's life at that person's request. And in Belgium, only a doctor is allowed to perform euthanasia. No question for a nurse, no question even for a lawyer like me. Three basic conditions. First, careful and repeat requests made by a competent adult patient. I speak about adult, but I am going to speak about minors in a while. And without outside pressure. Unbearable physical or mental suffering due to a serious and incurable disorder caused by illness or accident, the patient being in a hopeless medical condition. It doesn't mean that he has to be terminally ill. That's very important. And please, if we are looking for legislation, don't forget that. Because, when I look at the law in Victoria, okay, they have a law. They are going to get a law and the enforcement of the law, but, on a so late stage that the people are almost dead. So it's also possible to write an advice directive, but I must say that we were a little disappointed about this advance directive concerning euthanasia because, first, there is formalism. Secondly, there is a limit in the validity, 5 years. And you have also the condition that euthanasia is possible only when the patient is in an irreversible unconsciousness based on current scientific knowledge. And that's the reason when you look at the report of the Commission, you are not going to see a lot of euthanasia based on anticipated declaration. But very important is also the advance directive regarding patients' rights. It's possible to write this advance directive, to choose a proxy of different proxy. There is no formalism, and also, it's compulsory. The doctor has to respect the wishes of the patient. So sometimes we say to our members of our Right to Die Society, pay attention. Okay, there is the advance declaration about euthanasia, but don't forget this advance declaration about patient rights is very important. And in 2014, we have made a step going to the extension of euthanasia for minors. It was a huge debate, but we realized that the question was not euthanasia for children, but the suffering of the children. And a child could be very mature in that kind of situation when he's terminally ill, when he sees that sometimes a friend of him lying in the room just close to the room of the kid, is dying or is dead. It's really a sensible question, but I think that we have found a wording that is possible for euthanasia for minors. It's only about physical illness. It's only when the child is going to die in a short time. We need the agreement of the parents. And also, we don't have put an age. We thought that it was more suitable to speak about the capacity, the notion of discernment of the child. Because, is it possible to say that euthanasia is possible for a child of 9, of 10, of 15? And in our last report of the Commission, I'm a member of this Commission, we have reported 3 cases of euthanasia for children. One of them was 9 years old, the other one was 11 years old, and the third one was 17 years old. That's very, difficult for the doctor, for the parents, but it's not the euthanasia is so difficult. It's a question of the illness of the child and the question that you are going to lose a child. That's the problem. It's not the problem of euthanasia. After 16 years of enforcement, I must say that the culture in medical field has changed a lot. It's no more taboo, and death is no more taboo. And even in the world of palliative care or in Catholic hospitals. And I'm going to quote a priest, Gabriel Ringlet, past Vice-Chancellor of the Catholic University of Louvain. He has written a book, Vous me coucherez nu sur la terre nue, l'accompagnement spirituel jusqu'à l'euthanasie. You will lay me naked on the bare earth. And that book is about euthanasia. So we have a priest in Belgium who is a proponent of our law on euthanasia. And he's not the only one. He has assisted several people until the last second. He was there. It was there the day of the euthanasia. If you look at this figure, you are going to see that there is an increase of reports of euthanasia to the Commission. That's quite normal. First of all, at the beginning, we had no practice of reporting euthanasia, no practice at all. So the first figures are very low, and now you can see that for 2017, we have received 2,309 declarations of euthanasia. it means that it's about 2% of all the deaths in Belgium. You can say it's not so many cases, but you also have to think about all the people beyond these figures, the family, the doctors, the team, the friends. You know, that's a lot of person. And we realize now that when we speak about euthanasia to friends, immediately some of them is going to say, well, you know, my friend has requested euthanasia, and it was very hard for the parting. It was hard to realize that we are not going to meet anymore, but it was so wonderful time before the death, able to speak together, able to realize our last wishes. And I remember one of my friends, she was a young woman of 37 years. She was coming from France. And one of her last wishes was to visit the Grand Place of Brussels. And so for a while, I was, transformed in a guide, tourist guide, in my town in Brussels. And when you were speaking, Deborah, this morning, I just received an email from her mother saying, well, I should want to speak to you again and again. It was a very hard moment, but that was her wish. We get testimony, a lot of testimony, a lot of thanks. And I must stress one point, because, well, there's an achievement, but what is very necessary, that is very useful, that we have to provide is training. And in the university faculties of medicine, they are quite reluctant to organize, something around euthanasia. Sometimes they are going to hide beyond palliative care and so on. But what we have realized as association, Right to Die Society from Belgium, is what we call the Forum Mayol. It exists in the French part of the country, Forum Mayol. It exists also in the Flemish part, Life Forum. And we work together. And, it's very useful to get that kind of forum. It's a possibility for doctors to receive some support when they receive a request for euthanasia. But we have also a training cycle each year. It's going not only on technical question, not only a question, how to practice euthanasia, what is the legal framework, but also the question of communication, how to communicate with patients, with family, and so on. That's very important. And also about, the sense of the life, philosophical or psychological question. And at first, this forum was intended for doctors, but nowadays, it's open to psychologists, to nurses, etc. New issue, yes. So I'm not going to speak about psychiatry. Monica has told you about this topic. I'm going to speak a little bit about polypathologies, French terminology for multimorbidity. And well, it's the second cause after cancer for request of euthanasia, more for elderly people, but it's important to take account of this because, when you have a woman or a man of 80 years old, suffering sometimes from blindness, but plus that. That could be the provision that we have in our law. Another topic is the question of patients coming from abroad. Not only Switzerland, is concerned by that, but also Belgium, especially French patients. I've talked about this friend of mine. There was a case also of Anne Bert, a famous writer. She decided to go to Belgium to receive euthanasia. It's not easy. It takes time. It takes sometimes, more than 1 year because, well, the people has to create a relationship with the doctor. But it's possible. But we are not going to give publicity because, well, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of energy, and our doctors are also to be a little protected. Another issue is the question of organ donation and euthanasia. From 2005 until 2017, we have 35 cases. And that's very important because it's also giving a sense to the decision of euthanasia with the organ donation. It could save lives. The question also of clause of conscience, but I have time to speak about this. Last topic, the question of opponents. It's not really a new issue, but I must say that we have more reaction of opponents in the last 5 years than at the beginning of the law, of the enforcement of the law. And sometimes you are going to hear that Belgium is a country where children are being killed, where euthanasia is being promoted for the purpose of collecting organs, or it's also the country where the old and the insane are eliminated. I confirm it's not true. And we have to pay attention to this kind of networks, integrist Catholic networks. The finance are coming from United States generally. And we have one of them, Alliance Defending Freedom, but freedom, they have a certain notion of freedom, it's not mine. And so, for example, they have taken in charge an application to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg against Belgium. There is no chance that this request is going on because, well, the question of admissibility is raised, and I think that in a few months we are going to hear that it's not going forward. But it takes time to answer to all these complaints, and so it's also the way for these people to speak about this bad country that Belgium is.